Hey there guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today I thought I would try and answer the question for you, should you buy the Samsung Galaxy S4 in 2018? While it's certainly true that you can get more powerful phones today, you can't deny the undeniable value of the S4. Currently you can buy it for around about $100 on the used market, which is quite a bit better value for Samsung phones, especially if you're comparing it spec to spec. Even though this phone was released in March of 2013, it still has respectable qualities about it. It's got a 5-inch 1080p panel, as well as an f2.2 aperture to shoot 1080p videos and 13 megapixel photos, 2GB worth of RAM, as well as between 16 and 64GB of storage space, with SD card expandable up to another 64 gig. It's got a removable 2600 mAh battery, which is a rarity these days. It has NFC support as well as wireless AC, and the front-facing camera is a 2 megapixel f2.4 shooter, which can also shoot 1080p videos. It runs Android 4.2.2 as standard and can upgrade to Android 5, which is getting a little bit long in the tooth now, but is not too bad nonetheless. And has an octa-core CPU with 4 1.5 GHz cores and 4 1.2 GHz cores, which is running on the 28nm process. That's not the most efficient that you can find these days, but it's still common amongst low-end and mid-range phones anyway. The display in question is of the Super AMOLED type, which means that it doesn't have quite as good color accuracy as an IPS type, but if you're not comparing it from Super AMOLED to IPS, maybe you won't notice the difference. If you are going to buy the phone, then it's probably best to leave it in the standard profile, as when you change it to dynamic and adaptive color profiles, for example when you're on YouTube, if you have the phone up like this, when you switch it to this, there's a different color profile, and that kind of annoys my OCD. Now let's talk battery life. I've been using this phone for about a week now, and I have a bit of an idea of what it's like. I'm usually quite OCD with charging my phones, but I stopped doing that so I could see how long the battery would endure. I was able to get 4 hours of relatively heavy use, as well as leaving it overnight, before getting it down to about 5%, which doesn't really sound that amazing, and you can forgive it because it's got a 28nm processor on a 2600 mAh battery. It is removable, so you could have multiple batteries and just swap them out when you like. Or if you're not as much of a heavy user as I am and make more phone calls instead of watching less videos, then you might not find it as much of a problem. Unfortunately, it doesn't support quick charge of any type, so you're limited to just 1 amp, even though it does charge in about 2 hours anyway. Now let's discuss some of the weak points of the phone, starting with the selfie camera. Yes, it's only 2 megapixels, although surprisingly can still shoot 1080p videos. If you don't plan on cropping into your selfies, then 2 megapixels is probably just fine for sharing online on social media, because that's about all you can get. Just for comparison, 2 megapixels is a little bit bigger than a 1080p screen. 2GB worth of RAM is also a little bit on the small side. You might have problems playing games like Pokemon Go, but for actual day-to-day use, I didn't actually notice it as much as I thought I would. Sometimes some apps will close in the background if there's too many processes open, but other than that, it actually optimizes it pretty well. Since the battery is removable, you can actually remove and upgrade it. If you buy yourself a new battery, you can always use the old battery as a backup. It's pretty handy like that, and I wish more phone manufacturers would include this feature. The best Samsung Galaxy S4 battery I could find on eBay has 3000 milliamps. It is at a slightly different voltage, but it should still work. And it has approximately like 11% more charge in it than the Samsung one. So you can get better batteries for it. Anyway, let's move on to some image quality tests. I may as well move into build quality and then my conclusion. Around the bottom of the phone, there's an options button on the left, a physical home button in the middle, and a back button on the right. They light up when you use it, and it has a capacitive touch feedback. At the top of the phone here is the logo from Samsung, as well as the earpiece. On the right side we have the lock button, and on the left side we have the volume rocker. On the bottom of the phone we've got the charging port, and on the top we have the headphone jack. That's right, this phone has a headphone jack. The back of the phone is easily removable, showing us where the battery is, as well as the SD card and the SIM card. They're both easy to install and remove. You just push them in and it'll pop out, and you push it in and it'll pop in. Nice and easy. Would I recommend you buy this phone in 2018? Well, I still think it has its place. If you compare it to the newer Samsung phones like the S8 or upcoming S9, they are 2 and 3 times better in most respects. The only respect they're not 2 and 3 times better in is price. Those phones are going for $800 or $1,000. This one's only $100, so it's a good value for the money if you like Samsung phones. Does it stack up to the rest of the competition, including new phones? Well, firstly, that's a little bit of an unfair comparison, considering that I'm expecting that you're going to be buying this phone used. But since you did ask, I will try and answer it. At this price point, $100, it's a little bit hard to expect the world out of a phone. Some phones at this price point don't even have 4G or a 1080p panel. They usually do have a lower battery, and the CPU might be also a little bit less powerful, so you can actually get better specifications for the money by buying this one than other regular phones. If you do expand your budget a little bit, you could get a much better battery in it, or you could have better in other respects. But you can't really get an all-round pretty good phone for this price point. I think it's pretty good. I also think that if you think this review is pretty good, then you should leave a like, a comment, and subscribe, because I do have more reviews coming in the future. Just about to receive a Lenovo P2 in the post, so I'll be reviewing that in coming months. Thanks again, guys, and I'll see you later.